Meanwhile, life at the guest house had settled into a routine. I found comfort in small things: a warm meal, a quiet walk in the morning, and the occasional call from a friend checking in on me. I discovered a resilience within myself I hadn't realized existed. I wasn't just surviving, I was beginning to thrive in small ways. At night, I reflected on my life, the sacrifices I had made, the love I had poured into my children, and the disappointment of rejection. I realized that my sense of worth could no longer depend on others, not even my family. I had to reclaim it myself. I may have lost my home, but I will not lose myself. Those words became a mantra, repeating in my mind whenever fear or doubt crept in. I began to feel a growing sense of empowerment, a belief that even though I had been left with nothing, I could still build a life full of purpose, dignity, and joy. The following week, I visited Mr. Andrews at his office. He introduced me to a project assisting a local community centre. The centre provided shelter, education, and support to women and families in crisis. They were in need of someone organised, compassionate, and reliable to help coordinate programs. I listened carefully as he explained the role. My heart pounded with excitement and nervousness. This was more than a job. It was an opportunity to make a difference, to use my experiences, and to contribute to the lives of others who were struggling. "You'll do wonderfully," Mr. Andrews said with certainty. "I can see it in you." His belief in me, combined with the quiet determination I had been cultivating, made me realize something profound. Life can offer second chances when we refuse to give up. I threw myself into the work with vigor, coordinating programs, meeting with families, and helping women rebuild their lives became a source of purpose and healing for me. I discovered that my own pain, the loss of my home, the rejection from my son, could become a tool for empathy and strength. I could relate to those who had been abandoned, forgotten, or left with nothing, and I could help them find hope again. Each day, as I helped someone gain confidence, secure resources, or simply feel heard, I felt a sense of fulfillment that I had never experienced before. The fire that had destroyed my house had unknowingly ignited a new path, a life that was more meaningful than the one I had lost. Even as I began to rebuild my life, the pain of my son's rejection lingered. I would sometimes think about David and wonder why he had allowed his wife's wishes to determine his decisions. I reminded myself, however, that holding on to anger or resentment would only hold me back. Forgiveness, even if unspoken, was a choice I needed to make for my peace and growth. I began journaling again, documenting my journey of resilience, reflection, and small victories. Writing became a way to process my emotions, celebrate my progress, and remind myself that I was capable of more than I had ever imagined. I lost a house, but I am finding my life. I may have been rejected, but I am discovering my worth. By the end of part 2, I had not only survived the fire and my son's rejection, but had begun to thrive. I was discovering that independence, resilience, and purpose are gifts we give ourselves when we refuse to depend solely on the approval of others. The road ahead was still uncertain, but for the first time in months, I felt a spark of hope. Hope that life could offer me opportunities I had never anticipated, and that I could transform my pain into purpose. Weeks passed, and my life slowly began to take shape in ways I could have never imagined. The initial shock of losing my home and being turned away by my son had faded, replaced by a quiet determination and a growing sense of purpose. Each day brought new challenges, yes, but also small victories that reminded me of my resilience and strength. I became fully immersed in the community center's programs. The women I worked with were struggling in ways I could relate to, abandoned, unheard, and unsure if they could trust the world again. But I had learned, through my own experiences, that compassion and patience can ignite hope. And so, I listened, truly listened, to their stories. I helped them navigate bureaucracies, secure necessities, and most importantly, believe in themselves again. One woman, Maria, had recently fled an abusive marriage. She had no home, no job, and very little confidence. At first, she refused to speak to anyone, curling into herself in quiet despair. I remember kneeling beside her one afternoon and gently placing my hand on hers. "Maria," I said softly, "you are stronger than you think. One step at a time, and you will find your way." Slowly, over weeks of consistent support and guidance, Maria began to open up. She started attending workshops, volunteering in community events, and even teaching younger women what she had learned. Watching her transformation reminded me why I had chosen to keep moving forward, despite my own hardships. The fire, the rejection, and the pain of abandonment had not ended my life. They had given me the perspective and empathy to help others rise. During this time, my relationship with Mr. Andrews deepened, though not in a romantic sense. He became a mentor and friend, someone who believed in me when I doubted myself. He encouraged me to step into leadership roles, helped me navigate challenges at the center, and most importantly, reminded me to trust in my own abilities. One evening, after a long day at the center, he invited me for a quiet walk along the river. The city lights shimmered on the water, and for a moment, I allowed myself to feel proud. Not just of surviving, but of thriving. "You've come so far," he said, his voice steady and kind. "I can see the difference you've made here. The world needs more people like you, resilient, compassionate, and brave." I smiled, feeling a warmth in my chest I hadn't felt since the fire. For the first time, I realized that losing my home and being rejected by my son had forced me to discover a version of myself I never knew existed, confident, capable, and unafraid to face life's challenges head on. Work at the center became more than just a job. It became my mission. I coordinated workshops, helped women secure employment, and even assisted with small community events. Every success, no matter how minor, felt like a victory, not just for those I helped, but for myself. I was proving, day by day, that life does not end when tragedy strikes. It begins anew, with lessons learned and strength gained. I remember one particularly emotional day. A mother named Hannah had recently lost her home due to eviction. She had 2 young children and nowhere to go. She was terrified, unsure of how she would survive. I spent hours with her, helping her find temporary housing, assisting with applications for aid, and comforting her when tears overwhelmed her. By the end of the week, Hannah's family had a small, safe apartment, and she looked at me with gratitude that brought tears to my eyes. "I don't know what I would have done without you," she whispered. "You didn't just help me, you believed in me." It was moments like these that reminded me of the true meaning of resilience and purpose. The fire had taken my physical home, my son had rejected me, and yet I had found a new home in service, a new family in those I helped, and a new purpose in life. Even as I thrived in this new life, memories of my son occasionally crept in. I couldn't help but wonder what had changed him, why he had allowed his wife's feelings to dictate his actions, and why he had chosen rejection over compassion. I thought about calling him, about asking for reconciliation, but I realized I needed to focus on my growth and well-being first. My journey was no longer about seeking approval. It was about claiming my own strength and independence. One afternoon, as I was organizing a community event, a woman approached me and said, "I saw how you've helped so many people here. Your story, it's inspiring. How do you do it?" I paused for a moment, looking at her, and then replied, "I've faced loss, rejection, and despair, but I realized that giving up never solves anything. We find strength in rising, in helping others, and in trusting that life can offer new beginnings if we're willing to step forward. Her eyes filled with tears, and she hugged me. I felt a quiet satisfaction. This was the true reward of all I had endured, the ability to uplift, inspire, and empower others. As the weeks turned into months, I began saving money, planning for my own independence once again. I started dreaming, not just of survival, but of creating a life that reflected my values, my passions, and my resilience. I considered opening a small business, starting a program for women who had been abandoned, or even renting a tiny apartment to call my own. Every decision was infused with careful thought and determination. I was no longer dependent on anyone's approval. I was no longer defined by what I had lost. I was creating a life of my own making, one that celebrated my strength, my compassion, and my ability to rise above adversity.